Underneath all sound lies a code, not a metaphor, not a concept, an actual energetic blueprint. The ancient mystics weren't just chanting for peace, they were triggering keys, hidden frequencies that shift reality, realign consciousness, and open gates to places the modern mind refuses to believe exist. When you hear these sounds, really hear them, something begins to vibrate differently within you. Not because the tone is beautiful, but because your own energy field begins to resonate, like a lock recognizing its key. You've felt it before, in a dream, maybe, in that moment of silence before waking, or in the deep hum that runs through the earth before a storm. These aren't random. These are echoes, traces of the primordial tones that formed the fabric of our reality long before language, before thought, and some say they were encoded deliberately, as markers, as invitations, as reminders. Modern science is catching up. Cymatics, the study of visible sound, shows us that when frequency moves through matter, it creates form. Patterns, sacred geometry emerging from pure tone. It's not accidental, it's not artistic, it's structure. Reality isn't built from atoms, it's built from rhythm, from sound, from frequency woven so deeply into existence that we stopped noticing it. The ancients didn't stop noticing. From Tibetan monks to Sumerian priests to the Egyptian temples where walls were designed to amplify specific chants, they knew. They knew that sound was the bridge, not just between people, but between worlds. Between this plane and the ones just out of sight, the ones waiting. And if you know how to listen, not just with your ears, but with your entire field, those portals begin to respond. They open, they shift, and reality begins to sing back. There's a reason ancient temples were designed the way they were. Domes, arches, stone corridors, all constructed with one hidden purpose: to hold vibration. These were not just places of worship. They were resonant chambers, tuning forks for the soul. When the right frequency was chanted, the space itself would come alive. The walls would hum, the air would shift, and those within would feel something opening. Not metaphorically, physically, spiritually, dimensionally. The sounds didn't just fill the room, they reached beyond it. Every sacred tradition has a name for these sounds. Some call them mantras, others seed syllables. But in essence, they are access codes, sequences of vibration that interact with the subtle architecture of the universe. Think of them like passwords to forgotten doors. Not just any tone works. It must be precise, calibrated, and above all, felt. That's the key. You don't recite these codes, you become them. This is where most people get it wrong. They chant, they repeat, but they don't embody. Sound is not performance, it is alignment. If your body is tense, if your mind is distracted, the sound goes nowhere. But when your breath, your emotion, your intent all converge on a single frequency, something profound begins to happen. You become the code, you generate the key, and the veil, the thin energetic boundary between this realm and the next, starts to bend. Certain frequencies are known to do this. 963 Hz, 528 Hz, the so-called solfeggio tones. But there are others, far older, far stranger, tones found carved into stone in places no modern explorer can explain. Frequencies tied to stargates, ley lines, and energy grids older than recorded time. The people who once used them are gone, but the codes remain, buried in old chants, hidden in forgotten rituals, whispered in the spaces between dream and waking. This isn't fantasy. This is physics we haven't caught up to yet. You are not a body. You are a field, a resonance, a node in a larger harmonic system. And when you hit the right frequency, the system notices, it shifts, it answers. Portals don't open with keys made of metal. They open with vibration. And that vibration has always been within you. Most people search for the extraordinary outside themselves, in books, in temples, in stories passed down from others. But the ancients understood something we've forgotten. The most potent sound codes aren't found. They're remembered, stored deep in the DNA, etched into the cellular memory of our bodies. Our vibrations we once knew how to speak, tones we once used like tools, not metaphorically, literally. Before we used words to describe the world, we used sound to shape it. This is why certain tones feel familiar, even if you've never heard them before. That low harmonic that stirs your chest, that high ringing you sometimes hear when no external sound is present. These aren't hallucinations, these are callings, internal echoes of a frequency you once held long before you were taught to forget. And when one of these frequencies aligns with your current state, your breath, your emotion, your intention. It acts like a magnet, pulling threads of reality together, softening the boundary between here and there. Not everyone is ready for that. Most people live in a kind of noise, not just external, cars, screens, endless chatter, but internal, constant mental loops, judgments, projections, fears. And sound doesn't operate cleanly in chaos. It needs space. It needs clarity. That's why silence is often the first initiation. You must clear the static before the sacred can arrive. But when you do, when you sit in that stillness long enough to feel your own vibration, when you begin to hum or chant, not because someone told you to, but because it arises naturally, then you're not just practicing, you're remembering, activating, restoring the lost language of frequency that once allowed humanity to interact directly with energy, with time, with space itself. And that's where things start to move, not outside you, but through you. Some people report visuals, lights, geometric shapes, swirling colors. Others feel it in their body, a heat, a trembling, an unexplainable lift in awareness. That's not your imagination. That's resonance in motion. You're tuning in, and something is tuning back. There comes a moment, if you go deep enough, when the sound stops being something you produce and becomes something that moves through you. A frequency not from your throat, but from the space around you. It's as if the room begins to sing back, not with words, but with feeling. You're no longer creating vibration, you're channeling it. And in that moment, you realize something ancient and undeniable. Sound is alive. It's not just a wave, it's an intelligence. This is what the mystics meant when they spoke of the word that was at the beginning. Not speech, not language, but primal vibration, conscious, intentional, creative, the source code of everything. And when you align with it, even for a few seconds, you're granted access to memory, to perception beyond time, to spaces and beings that do not operate within the five senses. This is not myth. This is resonance-based interaction with other layers of reality. The reason most never experience this is because they treat sound as decoration, background noise, something to fill the silence. But in sacred practice, silence is not empty. It's a medium, a canvas, and sound is the brushstroke. The ancients didn't make sound casually. They shaped it like architecture. Each syllable was crafted, weighted, and placed with precision. Because they weren't just making noise, they were opening gateways. When these tones are generated in the right environment, with the right intention, they begin to ripple, not just through the air, but through time, through memory, through dimensions. That's why certain chants used by monks can be felt vibrating in the bones even centuries later. It's not nostalgia, it's energetic imprinting. The space remembers, the frequency echoes, and if your field is open, you remember with it. This is where science starts to fall short, because it wants to observe without participating. But sound doesn't work that way. You can't just study it. You have to surrender to it, to let it reconfigure you, because it will. That's its function. Sacred sound doesn't just open portals outside, it opens the one inside, the real one, the one we forgot we locked. And when that portal opens, there is no going back. Not because something scary awaits you, but because what you find is so profoundly real, so utterly undeniable, that your old view of the world simply crumbles. What was once noise becomes signal. What was once chaos becomes code. And you become the instrument. If something inside you is starting to shift, subscribe and turn on the bell, because this is only the beginning. Eventually, as the vibration deepens, something within you begins to unravel, not in a destructive way, but in a revealing one. Layers fall away. The assumptions you've carried about who you are, what the world is, what's possible, they don't explode, they dissolve. And underneath them, something far older, far quieter emerges. A memory that doesn't belong to your current lifetime, yet feels unmistakably yours. That's not imagination. That's resonance awakening recognition. Some traditions call this the reactivation of the inner tone, a primordial sound signature unique to every being, like a soul fingerprint. It was there before your name, your face, your story. And when sacred frequencies reach the right pitch, they call that tone forward, not with volume, but with alignment. You start to hum without trying. You breathe differently. Your body becomes an instrument. Your spine, a tuning fork. Your heart, a drum. This is not metaphor. This is ancient tech, biological, spiritual, energetic. And when that inner tone is active, portals aren't just possible. They're inevitable. Not flashy wormholes or sci-fi effects, subtle shifts, a sensation of spaciousness, time bending slightly, a door you didn't notice before, a thought that feels like it came from somewhere else, a presence. These are the real signs, and if you follow them, they lead you deeper, not outward, but inward, because every hidden portal you're searching for out there is actually mapped inside you. Modern systems taught you to ignore this, to mistrust your own resonance, to dismiss the inner knowing that rises without logic. But the ancients trusted it. They built their entire reality around it. Their cities, their ceremonies, their language, all structured according to harmonic principles. Not because they were primitive, but because they understood something we've forgotten. That consciousness is not something you have, it's something you tune into. So when you chant, when you breathe, when you move with rhythm, you're not practicing spirituality. You're recalibrating. You're syncing up with the deeper structure of existence. You're aligning with the tones that shape matter, perception, and time itself. And when you do that long enough, consistently enough, the veils between worlds thin, not because you forced them to, but because you remembered how to listen. The thinning of the veil isn't an explosion. It's a soft fold in the fabric of what you thought was solid. You'll notice it not with your eyes, but with your awareness. A breeze in a room with no windows, a shift in temperature that doesn't match the air, a sound you didn't hear with your ears but felt in your spine. These aren't glitches, they're responses. The universe echoing your frequency back to you, not to scare you, to signal you're close. As your inner tone grows stronger, so does your sensitivity. And this is where the real initiation begins, because sacred sound doesn't just open portals, it opens you. It brings forward what's hidden, the grief you didn't process, the anger stored in your muscles, the fear that hums beneath every decision. Sound brings it all to the surface, not to punish, but to liberate. It clears the vessel, and only a clear vessel can carry the full current. This is why, in every ancient rite, sound was used to prepare the initiate. Before vision, before revelation, there was vibration, drums in caves, chants in stone temples, bells at dawn, not for performance, but for purification. They knew that the body was the bridge, and the bridge had to be strong. You don't walk through a portal unprepared. You become the portal, and that means confronting everything that blocks your frequency from flowing clean. But the beauty is this: the sound does the work. You don't have to understand it. You don't even have to believe it. You just have to allow it. Let it move you. Let it find the places where your system resists, and hum into them until they loosen. This isn't about control. It's about surrender, about trusting that what's coming through you is more intelligent than what you've been taught to think. And then, when the vessel is clear, when the tone is strong and steady, you begin to feel it. Not metaphorically, tangibly. The shift, the bend. Like the floor beneath your feet is both here and elsewhere. Like your breath is syncing with something vast and ancient. That's not fantasy. That's you crossing into the frequency of the hidden. Portals are not doors. They are frequencies, and those frequencies only activate in the presence of resonance. That resonance is you, when you're fully aligned, not fragmented, not performing, just present, just humming, just being. And once the resonance is stable, when you are no longer searching, but simply vibrating, you begin to attract presence, not attention, presence. Energies, intelligences, beings that don't arrive with sound or sight, but with weight. You feel them before you ever see them, like gravity pulling at your awareness. They aren't here to speak. They're here to resonate with you, because now you're tuned to their layer of reality. You've met them halfway, through vibration. This is not a game, it's not entertainment, it's communion. These moments aren't loud, they're precise. Time stretches, breath slows. You're not thinking anymore. You're listening with your entire field, every cell, every nerve. And in that stillness, messages come, not in words, but in knowing. You receive what can't be translated, only remembered. And when it lands, it changes you. This is why so many mystics return from these states unable to explain what they experienced. Because what happens in resonance doesn't belong to language. It's beyond concept. It's experiential architecture. It builds itself within you. And the more you tune into it, the more your outer life begins to restructure around that inner vibration. People leave, ideas fall away, paths realign, not because you chose it, but because your frequency no longer supports the old. And now, everything is feedback. The tone of someone's voice tells you what their field is hiding. The silence in a room speaks louder than the people in it. You begin to feel the geometry of emotions, the shape of truth. And most of all, you start to hear the spaces in between things, the pause between heartbeats, the gap before a thought arrives. That's where the sound codes hide, in the stillness, in the crack between the seen and unseen. That's the real portal, not a flash of light, not a wormhole, a vibration you recognize so deeply it feels like coming home. And when you match it, reality shifts, not by force, but by coherence. The door opens because you are the door, and the codes that once seemed external reveal themselves as internal. Ancient, yes, but also yours, always yours. Eventually, you stop chasing the experience and start embodying it. That's when something fundamental changes. You realize that the portal isn't a place you go to, it's a state you return to, one that was always available, but constantly drowned out by the noise of distraction, identity, and fear. Now, in the absence of all that, you don't need to be convinced of anything, you know. And that knowing isn't fragile, it hums through your bones. The world around you hasn't changed, but your tuning has. So everything appears in a different frequency. You start to notice patterns that were always there, the way sound shapes people's mood, how certain words fracture energy while others restore it, how music isn't just entertainment, it's a kind of coding. You walk through space like a wave, aware of how your own resonance ripples through a room, through others, through timelines, and you begin to take responsibility for your tone. That's the hidden teaching. That sacred sound was never about opening gates to escape. It was about restoring your capacity to harmonize with the real, with the original architecture of existence, with the intelligence that breathes between atoms. This isn't about escaping your body, it's about remembering what the body is, a receiver, a transmitter, a living instrument of awareness. And now, when you sit in silence, it's not empty anymore, it's charged, pregnant with vibration waiting to move. You hum a tone, and you feel the echo come not just from the walls, but from within time itself. You don't need rituals, robes, or incense anymore. You are the ritual, you are the temple. The sound lives in you, and through you, it becomes activated. This is where the old teachings meet the modern seeker, not in belief systems, but in embodiment, not in dogma, but in frequency. And once you've reached this state, you realize there is no return. You've crossed something, quietly, but completely. You've stepped into coherence with the hidden layers of existence, and they, in turn, step into coherence with you. Not because you asked, because you remembered. You don't leave a moment like this unchanged. Something settles inside you, quiet, but undeniable. It's not a belief, it's not even a thought, it's a frequency, one that keeps vibrating long after the sound has stopped. You walk differently, you breathe differently. The things that once pulled you into anxiety or distraction lose their grip, not because the world has become less chaotic, but because you've become more tuned, more stable in the signal, more clear on what's real. And maybe for the first time, you understand what it means to be the portal. You're not waiting for something to arrive. You're remembering that it already has, and always was. Every time you speak with intention, every time you hum a tone that makes your chest vibrate, every time you choose presence over reaction, you're activating the ancient sound codes again, not as myth, as reality, living, breathing, resonant truth. Now the question is no longer if these sounds open portals. It's why you were drawn to them in the first place. Why now? Why here? What part of you knew it was time to hear this again? These aren't casual questions. These are initiations. And they don't come from outside. They come from the deepest layers of your being, the ones that were listening before you ever hit play. So if something moved inside you during this, if a frequency stirred something ancient in your bones, share that. What did you feel? What did you remember? What tones have followed you through your dreams, through your silence, through your life? Drop it in the comments, not just for us, for the others, the ones still tuning in, the ones still humming in the dark, waiting for someone to answer back. Let your voice become that signal.